Bitches, welcome to episode 168 of C3 Crystals, Cauldrons, and Cocktails. I'm River Kane, and I will have Glim talking here as well. Ren is helping me with ideas and giving me inspiration, so she's with us in spirit. Also, just so you guys know, I do have a second surgery on my ankle coming up. The wounds aren't healing right, so the doctor said he's got to go in and clean them out. So I have to be put under and all that good stuff. So I will probably not be feeling too well after that. So I'm recording this a little bit early, but I will get it posted hopefully by Friday at midnight. So today, Glim and I are going to talk about witchy urban legends and sorting out magical truths from broomstick bullshit. I'm curious to go down this path as we all hear about spells and trends and legends that are common, but are they really the truth or are they made up stories? So, personally, if the intent is there and the energy is there, I think that many spells and legends can be true at the same time. But first, Glim came up with a cocktail for us today. It's called the Broomstick Bellini. Glim, tell us what it's all about.
Sure thing. The Broomstick Bellini is a playful twist on the classic Bellini, perfect for adding a little magic to your glass. It's made with peach puree, a splash of sparkling wine, and a hint of elderflower liqueur for that enchanted touch. We also add a pinch of edible shimmer to give it a mystical sparkle, making it look like a potion straight out of a witch's cauldron. It's light, refreshing, and just a bit magical, perfect for sipping while we unravel these witchy urban legends.
I love that. So let's get started with things that the internet insists are these ancient, wonderful, magical things that really are not. So, the first one that I'd like to talk about is cinnamon blowing at the beginning of the month. This is not an ancient tradition, but it does have roots in folk magic, hoodoo, and kitchen witchery. The current viral version on TikTok and Pinterest, those are mostly modern social media friendly spells that might be based on older practices, but they are not ancient practices in and of themselves. Cinnamon does have roots. Cinnamon is known for prosperity. Cinnamon has long been associated with wealth, abundance, protection, and energy in both folk magic and herbal medicine. And in hoodoo and conjure magic, cinnamon is commonly used in floor washes, oils, and powders for money drawing and home protection. Its fiery energy makes it a great get stuff moving type spice.
Exactly. So while the idea of blowing cinnamon at your door on the first of the month isn't some ancient mystical rite passed down through millennia, it's still a powerful piece of modern folk magic. It's a perfect example of how traditions evolve and adapt. It's easy, it's accessible, and who doesn't love a little extra prosperity charm? Plus, it smells amazing and sets a positive intention, which is really what magic is all about.
That's a good point. I do love the smell of cinnamon. It's actually one of my favorite spices. So let's talk about some witchy facts about cinnamon. It used to be more, what do you call it, worth more than gold. In ancient Egypt, cinnamon was so rare and so valuable that it was considered more precious than gold. And it was used in embalming rituals too, which I think is kind of cool. Temple offerings and royal perfumes. Merchants guarded its source with lies by saying it was harvested by giant birds that are or found in snake-guarded valleys so that people wouldn't know where to go and get it. Witchy tie-in for this, cinnamon's ancient associations with death rites and sacred offerings make it an excellent ingredient in ancestor work and spiritual invocations.
Absolutely. The rich history of cinnamon gives it a special place in magical practices. Its connection to ancient rituals and its luxurious status in the past make it perfect for adding a layer of gravitas to modern spell work. Using cinnamon in ancestor work or spiritual invocations can help bridge the gap between the old and the new, honoring the past while embracing the present. And let's not forget how his warm, comforting scent can create the perfect ambiance for any ritual.
Yeah, it's actually fire magic in plant form. Cinnamon is associated with the sun and the element of fire. It brings speed, heat, and intensity and energetic movement, making it perfect for spells involving those things. Motivation is a good one, a good example of that. So, in addition to blowing it on your door, you might use it to ignite spells or wake up stagnant energy. And it's also a powerful aphrodisiac, magically and physically. It increases circulation and stimulates the senses, which is why it's been used in love spells and love potions for centuries. And in some folk traditions, cinnamon oil was used to anoint candles or talismans to attract lovers or heat up cold relationships. So a cinnamon spell a day keeps the fuck boys or fuck girls away, unless you want one, of course. The ancient spice wars were basically all about cinnamon. It said that the Arab traders monopolized the cinnamon trade for centuries, telling fantastical stories about to protect its origin. And this led to centuries of colonization and exploitation, especially in what's now modern day Sri Lanka, where the true cinnamon originates. But cinnamon was used as a protective incense as well. Burning cinnamon bark or oils was believed to purify sacred spaces and ward off illness or evil spirits. So this made it a staple in temples, homes, and yes, witchy spaces long before essential oils were even a thing. So this does lead credence to the blow on the door for prosperity spell that we hear about today. In medieval Europe, cinnamon was used in witches' wine. Glim, tell them what witches' wine is.
Witch's wine, also known as mulled wine, was a spiced concoction often brewed by medieval healers and, of course, witches. It combined wine with various spices like cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and sometimes honey or herbs. This warming elixir was not only delicious, but also served medicinal and magical purposes. The spices were believed to warm the body, ward off illnesses, and enhance the drinker's vitality. Adding cinnamon to the wine made it a potent brew for protection, love, and energy, essentially making it a magical potion in a cup. It was especially popular during cold months or gatherings where it doubled as a festive and protective beverage.
Yeah, I actually read somewhere that it was given to people that were suspected of being bewitched or spirit struck. I think that's pretty clever. It was kind of a medieval hot toddy with an exorcism bonus, but it's also antibacterial, antiviral, and it can be deadly, though, in large doses. Magic aside, cinnamon contains cinnamaldehyde, which gives it its punch, but in high doses, it's toxic. And that's one of the reasons why that cinnamon challenge that went viral all over TikTok and YouTube, it was banned. For those of you who don't know, the cinnamon challenge involved individuals attempting to swallow a tablespoon of ground cinnamon in under 60 seconds without drinking any liquids. And participants, of course, would film it for TikTok or whatever, and then share those videos. And they would showcase their reactions, which usually was coughing or gagging or spewing clouds of cinnamon. I think this was back in 2012 or so, and it got banned because people were ended up poisoned or getting respiratory issues, including collapsed lungs. So anyway, so now that you know that there is some magical history to cinnamon, let's go back to our internet idea of blowing cinnamon on your door at the first of the month. There's also a history of blowing powders in magic. So in hoodoo and conjure cultures, there is a practice called blowing powder. It's also called dusting or laying tricks, where the powdered herbs, mineral, or roots are blown onto a surface or onto a person or object to create a specific effect, love, luck, protection, or whatever. So, practitioners might blow cinnamon, sugar, or other ingredients at doorways, across thresholds, or into the wind with intention. Did you know, actually, speaking of blowing out things, the Victorians blew out candles deliberately during seances as part of spirit communication because they thought that spirits traveled through the smoke? I thought that was pretty cool. So anyway, the concept of blowing comes from a true ancient history. So now we've come up with this new age internet magic remix of these ancient traditions. And this first of the month thing was probably because it involved an easy way to remember when to do it. But it popped up on Instagram, I probably around 2010s, I think. And the practice likely involved combining cinnamon's prosperity associations and the hoodoo tradition of blowing powders and magic, and then adding that catchy calendar thing, which helps you remember and share what you're supposed to do with it. And TikTok then helped it explode around 2020, 2021, with influencers doing it for manifestation aesthetics. And it always looks cool. I have seen, witches blowing the cinnamon at their doors, and it's really fun, especially if it's a purple door. So, should witches use it? Sure, with awareness. It's a great spell, but it's important to know that the blowing technique is borrowed from Afro-Caribbean traditions like hoodoo and should be approached with respect, just like you do with any other indigenous magic. You approach it with respect if it's not your cultural magic. And if you're a kitchen witch, folk practitioner, or eclectic witch, you can do this spell by adapting it to your path, acknowledging its roots, and not presenting it out there as this is an ancient Celtic grandmother magic, because that's not true. An example of a thoughtful witchy adaptation is like on the first of the month, stand at your front door with a pinch of cinnamon, visualize the abundance. You got to get your intent locked in, and blowing it into your home and say, as I blow, abundance flows into this space, prosperity grows, and then you blow it inward through the doorway. You can add basil, sugar, or crushed bay leaves if you want to amp it up or make it your own.
And that's the beauty of modern magic, adapting and evolving practices to suit your own path while honoring their origins. It's all about intention, respect, and a little bit of creativity. So whether you're blowing cinnamon for prosperity or sipping on a broomstick Bellini, remember that magic is what you make it. And hey, if it smells amazing and brings in abundance, why not? Let's keep those witchy traditions alive and thriving, one spell at a time.
I love that. And I actually love this spell idea, especially in the fall, because like you were talking about, Glim, the smell of cinnamon is just lovely. I love it. And so blowing it in the door on a crisp fall day and saying a spell out loud just sounds fantastic, especially if we're sipping that broomstick Bellini. So even though this particular spell isn't really an ancient spell, even though we might have heard that, it came from the Celtics or whatever, it doesn't mean that you can't use it with success today. So the next spell that I would like to talk about that we all have heard about is the famous freeze someone in a jar to stop gossip or unwanted attention spell. This is also one that's touted as being this, ancient spell that you find in grimoires and all that, but it's not. It's not an ancient ancestral spell. First of all, there was no way to make ice like we have today. So it wasn't a simple thing to just go and freeze someone in a jar unless it was wintertime. Then you could freeze all the people you wanted, I suppose, but it wasn't a long-term available spell in history. It really evolved through Wicca and Hoodoo crossovers. So the freezer spell is a type of banishing or binding spell. I think we've talked about it before, and it's intended to stop someone in their tracks, like halt gossip, silence a toxic person, block unwanted contact, or freeze someone's influence over your life. So where did the spell come from? It came from modern folk magic. The freezer spell is often traced back to the urban folk magic and kitchens and witchcraft around 1970s to the 1990s. It's not found in ancient grimoires or traditional witchcraft. It's good old, practical, adaptable, low-key witchcraft. It does have that hoodoo influence. Like there are similar techniques in hoodoo, especially with container spells like bottle spells, sour jars, vinegar jars. But unlike freezer spells, hoodoo workings are often more elaborate, of course, and rooted in cultural tradition, and caution would be advised before you borrow that type of spell. So is this broomstick bullshit or is it real magic? Well, it's actually both. It's not ancient or traditional. It's not like it came from ancient Egypt. It's not Celtic Druid magic. It doesn't show up in historical grimoires and dusty old occult scrolls. But if you are someone who wants to use it, it is real magic in practice. If someone tries to say, "Oh yeah, this is an ancient spell," they are full of bullshit. I call broomstick bullshit on that. But despite its modern roots, freezer spells follow solid magical mechanics, intention, symbolic action, containment, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The essence of the freezer spell is all about using symbolic action to manifest a real world effect. By freezing someone's influence or negativity, you're essentially putting their actions on ice, halting their impact on your life. It's practical, easy to do with common household items, and incredibly effective for many practitioners. Plus, the adaptability of modern magic means that even if it's not an ancient spell, it can still be a powerful tool in your witchy toolkit. The key is to practice with intention, respect, and a clear understanding of what you're doing. So, whether you're freezing someone's bag vibes or blowing cinnamon for prosperity, you're participating in a living, breathing tradition that's as real as you make it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Freezer spells are legit magic. They're just not, just because they're not ancient doesn't mean they're not powerful. I mean, witches make them work. That's the evolution of spells, baby. I just think that's how magic works. We do take ancient stuff and bring it into modern times. The next thing, speaking of, is moon water. Now, you might think, and I think it is heralded all over TikTok and YouTube, that this is ancient, rooted magic. But moon water is not. Despite sounding like something witches have been bottling since Stonehenge was still under construction, moon water is not found in ancient magical texts or folklore. Moon water is a modern invention, most likely arising in the late 20th centuries during the boom of that New Age spirituality and the Neo-Wicca stuff that Ren and I have talked about in the past. It really took off in between the 1990s and the 2000s, then exploded again with the rise of Instagram witchery and witch talk and TikTok. So why do you think it caught on? Well, the moon, obs. I mean, everybody has moon obsession. Every witch, I'm sure, is obsessed with the moon. I know I am for sure. Modern witches have been obsessed with lunar phases and with good reason. The moon governs tides, emotions, feminine energy. Charging water under the moon just feels like it's witchy as fuck. I mean, even if it is a new thing. The crystal influence is also probably a reason why moon water came to be. In the New Age movement, charging crystals under the moonlight became trendy, so it wasn't a huge leap from charging crystals to charging water. And it's accessible. Everybody can do it. You don't have to have any rare herbs or antique athame, just a jar, water, and moonlight. So it's super easy, aesthetic, and feels powerful, especially with baby witches just starting out. And social media has made moon water Instagrammable and TikTok worthy, honestly. So while moon water itself isn't ancient, the idea of celestial and natural forces charging substances, that has been around forever. Alchemists believed in the philosopher's dew, which is early morning moisture believed to contain spiritual or planetary power. It's said that in Chinese medicine, water and lunar rhythms have symbolic importance. Folk magic often incorporates natural elements charged by environmental energy, like the dew collected at dawn on Beltane or whatever. So while the exact practice is modern, the concept is rooted in very old ideas, nature imbued with power of celestial bodies. I mean, look at the whole astrology thing. That's all about celestial bodies. So that is ancient. Moon water is modern but magical. It is a perfect example of how witches evolve their craft, taking ancient inspiration and remixing it with the now.
Exactly. And that's the essence of modern witchcraft, melding ancient wisdom with contemporary practices. Moon water may not have been used by our witchy ancestors, but the idea of harnessing lunar energy certainly was. It's a fantastic way to bring a bit of celestial magic into your daily practice, and it's accessible to everyone. Plus, it keeps the craft alive and evolving, which is what witchcraft is all about, honoring the old while embracing the new. So, let's keep brewing that moon water and infusing our lives with a little lunar magic.
And I must say, the moon feels magical to me. I can just feel it. I feel it. There's a whole full moon craziness that any of us that work in the public sector have witnessed 100%. And it's not so far-fetched that to go from realizing how the different phases of the moon affect us to jumping in with leaving water or crystals or tools out in the moon's rays to embrace magic. Okay, so what about some things that sound fake AF but are actually real? Witch bottles. You have all heard about witch bottles, these bottles that are filled with pee or fingernails or hair and then buried under the house for protection. You're probably like, yeah, right. Nobody does that. Well, yeah, they did. That was a real thing. In the 16th and 17th centuries in England, this was a very common thing. Gross, but apparently very effective.
Absolutely. Witch bottles are a fascinating example of old school protective magic that actually has historical roots. People would seal these bottles with all sorts of personal items, sharp objects, and herbs, then bury them to trap and ward off malevolent spirits or curses. It's like a magical security system from the past. And the best part? Archaeologists have even found some of these buried bottles, confirming that these weren't just stories, they were actual practices. It's a perfect blend of the creepy and the practical, and it shows how resourceful our witchy predecessors were.
That's so cool. The next thing is toads in witchcraft. You know, everybody, it's like a fairy tale. Oh, the toads, you kiss the toad, you get a prince, that kind of thing. And so people probably don't realize that toads in witchcraft is also a very real thing. Usually, we think of toads as being familiars or that kind of thing. In some grimoires, it is actually indicated that witches actually did kiss toads, but they did it to gain psychic insight, not for a prince to appear. And did you know some witches in ancient times were accused of keeping toads in eggshells or teapots and then feeding them blood via their witch's teat? I think Ren and I talked about this one before. And also, did you know, and this might be another reason why ancient witches licked their toads, the Colorado River toad, also known as the Sonoran desert toad, is the only toad species where they have this chemical bufotenin, which can cause hallucinations, and it presents in large enough doses and quantities to create this psychoactive effect. So when a toad is licked, their skin glands release chemicals that can be absorbed by the mucous membranes in the mouth and create hallucinations. So who knows if that's not why our little ancestors weren't out there licking all those toads. The next thing is putting garlic in your sock to remove hexes. So the idea is that you shove a garlic clove in your sock and wear it to absorb curses or ward off evil. So do you think this is real or ridiculous? Well, it's actually real. Garlic is a classic protective herb that has been used throughout the centuries. This one comes actually from Eastern European folk practices, and it might not remove a full-blown hex, but it's really solid in warding magic. Plus, vampires hate it, so hey, bonus. Glim, do you have any other stories to add that we might think of that sound fake but are actually real?
Absolutely. One that might surprise people is the use of mirrors in magic. You know how folks say breaking a mirror brings 7 years of bad luck? Well, that belief comes from the idea that mirrors are not just reflective surfaces, but magical tools that can trap or reflect energy. In many cultures, mirrors were used for scrying or as protective charms to deflect negative energy or even evil spirits. So the whole bad luck thing is actually rooted in the magical belief that a broken mirror disrupts the protective or divinatory energy it holds.
So let's talk about some TikTok trends claiming to be of ancient origin that tend to make real witches just cringe. Okay, one of them is adding glitter to spells. Okay, I love glitter. Nothing wrong with adding it to a spell in modern times, but it's not an ancient thing. Obs. I mean, glitter is made of microplastics. They didn't have microplastics in the past. And it doesn't really make a good offering. People are like, you could use glitter as an offering, but we generally don't want to pollute our environment to in an attempt to make the spirits happy. That being said, the Fae and other spirits do like shiny things, so it doesn't hurt if you want to leave trinkets and things as offerings. Another one is putting a lemon under your bed for psychic dreams. Okay, so dream magic is a real thing. Ren and I did an episode on that a little while back. Go check that out. Dream magic is ancient, but people use herbs like mugwort, lavender, or valerian for that. So putting a lemon under your bed is probably not going to do it. But I must say that for centuries, it's been a thing to put things under your pillow, a charm, or, maybe a sachet under your pillow for dream magic. So maybe this idea came from a mishmash of lemon lore as well as modern TikTok energy and the idea of dream magic. And then, boom, you came up with lemon under the bed for psychic dreams. But lemons are great for clearing negativity, breaking hexes, and cleansing. And so, that may be where the idea came from. This trend apparently started in 2021 or 2022 on Witch Talk, or maybe Manifestation Talk, possibly tied with the idea that lemon absorbs negative space from a person or a space. Lemon and salt, which I'll talk more about that in a minute, in a cup can be energetically cleansing. The idea for that was to put lemon slices and salt in a glass in a glass of water and to detect or absorb bad energy in the room. And this is actually real. This has roots in both Latina La Limpia practices and modern folk magic because lemon and salt are natural purifiers. And if the water turns murky or the lemon molds super fast, then they say it's effectively absorbing that negativity. I mean, it's kind of gross, but it's working. So this may be where the TikTok trend came from. So some trends and urban legends do have magical merit. The key, and this goes for any kind of spell or magic, is the intention.
Exactly. Intention is the cornerstone of any magical practice. Whether you're adapting a trend or creating your own spell, the energy and focus you bring to it are what truly make it work. While it's fun to explore new ideas from social media, it's always good to dig a little deeper into their origins and understand their cultural and historical context. That way, you're not just following a trend, but weaving it thoughtfully into your own practice. In the end, every witchcraft tradition was new at some point, and it's our responsibility to practice with respect, knowledge, and of course, a bit of creativity. So go ahead and add that glitter if it suits your spell. Just maybe opt for biodegradable versions and keep the magic real.
Oh, that's a very good point. I like that idea. So let's talk about urban legends about witches themselves and whether they're true or not. I mean, I think spoiler alert, most of them are not going to be. But the first one I came across was Witches Can't Cry. And this one is from Eastern European folklore. And legend says that witches are soulless, and so tears actually burn them. And I beg to dispute this because I cry a lot. Another one is if you stare into a witch's eyes, she can curse you with a blink. I'm thinking this one may be part of the evil eye concept.
Exactly. The idea of a witch's gaze having power definitely ties into the concept of the evil eye. The evil eye is an ancient belief found in many cultures that certain looks or glances can bring misfortune or harm. The notion that a witch could curse someone with just a blink is likely a sensationalized version of that belief. In reality, witches are just people with a spiritual practice, not walking hex machines. So staring contests remain perfectly safe.
That's that's very true. The next one is a legend about the crying witch in the woods, and there's lots of versions of this one. So the legend is a weeping woman in a cloak lures travelers off the path. Some say she's a banshee, others say she's cursed to wander, and if you follow her, then you vanish. This is told in the Appalachian regions, in Eastern Europe, and pretty much on every Reddit thread that you come across. The vibe is a La Llorona meets the Blair Witch.
Exactly, and these kinds of stories usually serve as cautionary tales, warning people, especially children, not to wander off alone. The Weeping Woman in the Woods is a blend of folklore, ghost story, and urban legend, often reflecting societal fears or moral lessons. While it's a captivating and spooky story, it's definitely more fiction than fact. But hey, it makes for a great campfire tale or spooky podcast episode.
Especially if you have a really good cocktail to go with it. I like that idea. The next one is Bloody Mary was a witch. So Ren and I actually did an episode on Bloody Mary, and you should go check that episode out. But the legend says that if you say Bloody Mary 3 times in a mirror, it summons the spirit of a vengeful or wrongly accused or wrongly executed witch. And the truth is that it probably came from Queen Mary the First, not who was not a witch that we know of. But the idea of mirrors and portals and spirits are a very real thing in folk magic.
For sure, mirrors have long been considered portals or tools for divination in many magical traditions. The Bloody Mary legend taps into that deep-rooted fear and fascination with mirrors as gateways to other realms. While the story of Bloody Mary as a witch is more of an urban legend, it does highlight how folklore often blends historical figures, fears, and magical beliefs into something spooky and intriguing. It's a great example of how myths evolve and keep their hold on our imaginations.
And it is sad to me that witches are so feared when really we're just spiritual people trying to heal ourselves, trying to heal nature, trying to heal other people, just exploring our own spirituality. So I think it's kind of sad that we're so feared. The next one is don't step on a witch's grave. This legend says that if you step on a witch's grave, she's going to curse you from the afterlife, maybe even grabbing your ankle from the dirt in her grave and dragging you down. And it's often paired with her tombstone's cracked or it's always colder near her plot. And this persists because graveyards are liminal spaces. And then, of course, that fear thing that we were talking about, as well as the vengeance concept, instantly gives you fuel for an urban legend.
Definitely. Graveyards have always been a hotbed for spooky tales, and the idea of a vengeful witch reaching out from the grave is a classic example. It plays into the fear of the unknown and the power attributed to witches, even beyond death. But in reality, most witches are focused on living in harmony with nature and the cycles of life. The idea of a witch cursing someone from the grave is more of a cautionary tale than anything rooted in actual witchcraft practices. It's another example of how folklore can really stretch the truth.
Then there's the idea of the cursed tarot deck, and I actually love this idea. It would be a great movie, and there probably is a movie out there that I haven't seen yet about cursed tarot decks. But this legend says that a haunted or cursed tarot deck that reveals your death date, or it won't stop giving you the death card, or that kind of thing. And it's the bonus points are received if you got it in a thrift store or it belonged to a dead relative or something. That reminds me of that movie with Eliza Dushku, Open Graves. I just love that, where it wasn't a tarot deck, it was a game, but the same kind of concept. And it sticks because tarot is mystical and unknown, and that leads to a perfect prop for a spooky tale. Now, the next one I've come up with is if you find a poppet or doll in the woods, leave it alone. The legend is that if you find a handmade doll, especially if it's bound, stabbed, or buried, that means someone did a spell and touching it could trigger the curse. It's creepy because sometimes it's actually true. There's an actual island of dolls out there. I think Ren might have done an episode. She either told me about this or we did an episode where she told us about this, the island of dolls. It's creepy. But poppets are real tools used in sympathetic magic, and most witches wouldn't just leave them lying around because they're powerful, unless it was intentional. So you should beware of that.
Absolutely. Poppets are definitely a real tool in sympathetic magic, used to represent a person or an intention. Finding one in the woods would definitely be a spooky surprise, but it's always best to be cautious and respectful of any magical object you come across. Whether or not it's cursed, it's part of someone's practice, and it's better to leave it undisturbed. Plus, it makes for a great campfire story or a thrilling podcast episode topic.
That's very true. The next one is witches leave no footprints, which would be lovely if we could do that. But the legend is that real witches walking through snow or mud won't leave footprints, or they leave backward facing ones, like the feet are facing backwards. Sometimes they just float an inch or so above the ground. Remember that Buffy episode where it was a Halloween one with it was Hush, I think is what it was, where they floated above the ground. That was so creepy. But it's persistent because witches are associated with bending reality, with liminal spaces, with illusion. And the no trace thing feels like proof of otherworldly power. And then I've got a bonus one. Glim actually came up with this one. It's if a goat stares at you too long, it's a familiar, or it's someone watching you through the goat's eyes, which is creepy. But the legend is that witches' familiars often hide in plain sight, especially goats. And I honestly, I love goats. I want a goat. I want a baby goat. I want the little teeny tiny goats that romp around that are so cute that you see on TikTok. And my husband says, yeah, those are great for barbecue. And I'm like, no. But goats tend to creep people out because they have the rectangular pupils, or, I don't know what it is about them, but Ren is terrified of goats. And I'm like, yeah, I want those little cute little goats. And she's like, oh, hell no. So she just thinks they're creepy as fuck. So anyway, I think they're adorable. So there are tons of urban legends out there about witches, and we will probably do some more episodes on this, especially with Glim if it takes Ren a little bit longer to come back. But I want to thank you all for listening. I think that's about all I've got with this episode today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like our show, check us out at our website, which is www.c3witchypodcast.com. There we have all the kinds of information about us. There are all our episodes are there. So if you can't find it anywhere else, although we are all on all podcast, whatever it's called, podcasts, there's a word for it. Brain still isn't working 100%. Platforms, that's the word. So if you should be able to find us there, but if you can't, you can find all the episodes on our website. You can find our merch there. I'm going to start working on some new merch. Our blog is there. We have other things there. So come check it out. If you want to support us, which please, 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 check out the links on our website to either Buzzsprout or Patreon. With Buzzsprout, you get the bonus episodes on your regular platform without having to search them down. If you go on Patreon, the bonus episodes will be there on Patreon, but you also get other goodies like treats, uh, recipes, what else do we do? To-do lists, clip art, all kinds of stuff. So you don't just throw money at us, which helps us greatly, but you do get a little bit back in return. So thank you so much to those of you who already support us. You guys rock. We could not do it without you. You are fantastic. We love you. So we will be back. And until then, stay witchy.